Okay, fellas, hope you enjoyed those end of season awards, especially with top spot in the group already wrapped up. But last game of the group, and it actually has some meaning on it, because if we don't beat Sevilla, this golf ball could turn into Juventus. Be Furatoria white golf ball with black writing on it, so it might have been Juventus all along. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 149 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode, as you can see on screen, we're about to start off with our end of season review. Off the back of that, we'll have a bit of a check in on the Europa League with HK as well as the Champions League before we play the last game of the group stage away at Sevilla, and off the back of that we will have the draw for the first knockout round coming up in tomorrow's episode. So if you are looking forward to today's one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But before we pick off in the Champions League, where we left things at the end of last week, if you missed that last episode, I'll leave a link to it in the top right corner. But we do have our end of season review, which this time fell off the back of the fifth game in the group stage of the Champions League for the first time, I think, so far since we have started this save. But we'll make our way through this fairly quickly and just get through it and see who has won what before we do get into that last game of the group stage against Sevilla. And we start off with the transfer business from this past season. The signing of the season does go to Adam Saki. Feels a little bit unfair on some players because he was, of course, with us last season on loan from Raja Casablanca, but we signed him on a permanent at the end of that loan deal. And to be fair to him, he has had a very good season, 27 goals in 16 appearances, 1 assist, and an 8.32 average rating for the good Moroccan striker that we did pick up for £5.5 million. Not too far behind that in terms of average rating, as Hans Voss has been playing for us in our backup team domestically. He's been doing a great job. Looks like a very good backup for us to Nicholas Zimmerman. He'll get some Champions League football come the start of the next European season. Not a great rating there, no doubt because of the price that we did pay for him, and the same will be the case for Alain Basicki, even though he's done quite well for us in that backup team domestically as well in his first season since joining the club. Filippo Dinelli did a decent job since coming in to replace Thiago Polo. Hasn't been here as long as those other signings have been, and again cost a lot of money, which no doubt is going to have an impact there on that board rating, but he's done a good job for us as well with a 7.62 average rating. And then some players who did cost us a lot less in terms of monetary outlay. First off, Narek Voskanyan, we got him on a free transfer. He was actually going to join the club a couple of seasons ago. We just had to wait for him to turn 18 years old. He is a highly promising striker who has been sent out on loan to Breda Blick. We've got some players that we signed off the next gen list for not too much money when you do consider their potential. Horikawa Herrera, who's doing a decent job as a backup for us, to Kenny Boreal in that Champions League squad, as well as Radenko Krolo. And then a few more players who haven't got much game time. Jimmy Coulsu stepped in for Joe Corcolan when we sold him in the past transfer window, and another very promising wing back there in Premsel Bokic. So some decent transfer business, even though we did spend a lot of money in this past season, especially at that top end with that £40 million transfer budget that we did have available to us. In terms of transfers out the board, quite happy with the transfer out of Joe Corcoran for that high fee, club record fee of £11.5 million. We also got rid of some fringe players like Brahim Makalal, Gabriel Zapata, Yoni Maez. Andy Harwood left us in the last year of his contract. The board not too happy with that one, but he wasn't going to get much game time being the age he was compared to Luis Herrera anyway. And we got £550,000 for him before he left on a free transfer to West Ham. Thiago Polo left us. We made a decent profit on that sale when we decided that we could bring in someone like Filippo Dinelli for him, getting £4.5 million off of Udinese, and then some smaller outs there, the likes of Peterson, Serdan Dedic, and some players who have come through our youth intake over the past few seasons. So I think our transfer business out was pretty good, as well as the ends this past season, as I said, even though we did spend quite a bit of money. And in terms of loans out, we've got a few players who are out and about in Iceland, as well as Thomas Teshi, and most of them are doing a good job for their respective clubs, especially those guys who are with HK down in the Europa League. So that wraps up our transfer business from this past window. Signing of the season will go to Adam Saki. Then we make our way over to the season's results. This should be very, very good reading for us. We did not drop a single point in the league for the second straight season, which was very good, of course, because we also had the FIFA Club World Cup to deal with, which for some reason doesn't come up in this season's results, which is a little bit perplexing. But Champions League, this is the one that does sting just a little bit, because of course we did miss out in the final of that competition last European season to Manchester City, albeit this season we have already topped our group, so the board quite happy that we are going to reach the first knockout round of that competition. Malka Bikram, and we won this very comfortably in the end, beating Villa in the final. The Super Cup, we bet HK 5-1 in early on in the season, and before that we picked up the deal to Bakar yet again with a 3-0 win in the final, also against HK, so we picked up a domestic quadruple again. You could argue actually won one more trophy than that, which should be included with that FIFA Club World Cup, which for some reason has not shown up on this season's results. The moments to remember: the biggest win was in the League Cup. It was a 9-0 win in the group stages over Vikinga. The match to remember yet again is against AC Milan. That was the 3-2 win there in the second leg, and that also had the goal of the season. That was right before halftime, an equaliser there to our signing of the season in Adam Saki. And it started from the back in injury time in the first half. We made our way forward. Somehow Saki got that past Fiate and just rockets this into the back of the net, albeit with a lot of help from the underside of the crossbar. Not too sure if that's the best goal that we've scored all season, but it was certainly quite an important one and did help us take out that second leg 3-2 and make our way through to yet another Champions League semi-final, that one picking up goal of the season. So far, Adam Saki, it's fair to say, dominating these awards. Our reputation, as you can see there on the finance screen, did go up. That was off the back of our win in the FIFA Club World Cup, and everything in terms of the annual revenue has also gone up, as you would expect with that win in the Club World Cup, and by making the Champions League final this past season. In the top 5 shirt sellers this past year, Mariano, Saki, Dumbia, Rakasan, and Zimmerman, selling 4,651 shirts, is not too bad of an effort. We'll check in on the best 11 off the back of this, because as you know by now, it isn't always right, that screen, in this little end of season award presentation that you do get. But here are the club awards for this past season. The Fans Player of the Season as well as Young Player of the Season goes to Fabio Mariano. That one is a little bit of an upset, it is fair to say. A player who was doing work for us in our backup team and stepping in occasionally so far in the Champions League for Kalen Rakasan, but he picks up both major awards. Does Fabio Mariano. Signing of the season, goal of the season, as you saw before, did go to Adam Saki. He also picked up the top goal scorer award with those 27 goals. In terms of most assists, Nicholas Zimmerman, he got 22, and also the most player of the matches with 7. The highest average rating was for our backup striker Hercules Delfino on a 7.8. And we make our way over now to the competition awards. We've got a few here from the African Football Awards this season. We have the African Footballer of the Year at the club. This did slip my mind earlier when we were about to get back into the swing of things in the Champions League knockouts, but Chaka Traore was the African Footballer of the Year this past season. Also picked up the Midfielder of the Year, while Adam Saki, off the back of helping Morocco lift the AFCON, he picked up the African Striker of the Year, and we also pick up both of the awards in the Icelandic top division. The Player of the Year goes to Fabio Mariano, so he has picked up a lot of awards this past season. Young Player of the Year in the top division in Iceland was Joe Nada, and some record breakers as well. Most clean sheets by a player in a season goes to Will Lervik with 28. The highest transfer fee paid for Filippo Dinelli of 37.5 million, even though we only spent 15 million of that up front. And the highest transfer fee received was for Joe Corcoran, 11.4 million. Yet again, no personal awards as a manager, which does seem a little bit harsh considering that we have now gone unbeaten domestically for the past 2 seasons. Not quite sure what else we are supposed to do here to pick up the Icelandic Manager of the Year, but those are the end of season awards. We'll just go over now and have a look at the best and overall 11, because for some reason we've gone back to look back at the side of 2021, and I think we've already covered that off a few seasons ago in these end of season awards. We don't need to worry too much about that one. But here is the best 11 from 2033 in the save. Our goalkeeper Will Lervik, off the back of seeing that record, 4 clean sheets. Levan Tam is at right back. It is Gaetano De Prisco and Tiago Polo at centre-back, which is a little bit interesting because this past season in Europe, our first choice combination has been Ali Ramadan alongside Elias Anderson and then Filippo Dinelli. So that must mean that those centre-backs in the domestic competitions are getting very good ratings, as well as Louis Herrera. He is a player who might force someone like Kenny Boreal into the second team sooner rather than later, with that very high potential that he has alongside Radenko Krolo. On the other side, in the midfield, we've got Bassero, Gay and Lassana Doumbia, as you would expect, but Fabio Mariano is in there for Kalen Rakassan, not entirely unexpected off the back of those end-of-season awards, considering he did pick up most of them. And then our front three for this past season, Hans Voss out right, that shows how good he has been in that backup team domestically. Chaka Traore out on the left, and Hercules Delfino up front with a slightly higher rating than what Adam Saki had. Interesting to see that both Nicholas Zimmerman and Adam Saki, the top assist getter and goal scorer for the club this past season, can't make their way into that best 11, but they are on the bench alongside Declan Spencer, Ali Ramadan, Filippo Dinelli, Jonata, and Patrick Nygaard. So that's what our best 11 does look like here for 2033, and we'll go back to the inbox now and have a quick look at the overall best 11 so far in the save. And as you can see by the inbox item, there is one notable change here to our best 11, and that is that Bassero Gay has made his way into the starting lineup. As you would expect, he is a superb defensive midfielder, one of a few players we do have at the club these days who are world class. But here is what our team looks like these days. In the best 11, we've got Hurlurvik in goal, Diaz, DePrisco, Polo, and Nygaard in defence. Still not quite sure why they've chucked Patrick Nygaard at right back. That does seem like an interesting one. The midfield, Bassero, Gay, Nicolosi, Caviglia, and Fabio Mariano getting pushed back into the Mazzala role now after he's been in there as a striker the last couple of years. Chaka Traore and Nicholas Zimmerman on the wings, and João Pedro makes his way back into this best 11 as a striker with that positional change there to Fabio Mariano and a bench of Sierra Fellini, Mbiamba, Corbo, Larson, Ledston, Kalen Rakassan, and Benjamin Rubio. So that's what our best 11 does look like, and that is the end of season awards here for 2033 at Völsungur. And just like that, we've gone forward a few weeks right prior to this last game of the Champions League group stage against Sevilla, but before then we'll have a bit of a check-in on both of the top two UEFA competitions here. First off, a look at HK down in the Europa League. They have played one game since we did leave things at the end of last week. Unfortunately, they suffered a 3-1 defeat away there at Montpellier, despite one of our former players in Ben Musa grabbing a goal, but they could still potentially sneak above Lazio if they can upset Valencia at home in their last game of the group stage. So they do still have a chance potentially of making their way into a Conference League first knockout round spot if they can finish third in the group, but they will need to beat Valencia to do that, and they also need Montpellier to get the job done there against Lazio away from home. But now we'll have a quick look at the groups in the Champions League before we do play this last game of the group stage. And here is what things do look like. We'll come back to our group shortly because we can dive a little bit deeper into that one with the last fixtures, but as you can see, we are already guaranteed to qualify top. Down to Group B, Man City look like they should qualify top. I suppose it depends on what happens on that final match day, but they are going to be joined by FK Partizan in the knockouts of the Champions League. That would be a team who we do have a good record against, who would be quite nice to draw in that first knockout round. In terms of Group C, that is a big freeway battle still, with Barcelona, Hertha Berlin, and Chelsea only separated by a single point. So any of those three teams could make their way through to the first knockout round. In Group D, Liverpool have guaranteed top spot. It is a battle between Napoli or Real Sociedad for that second spot. Two teams we have beaten recently, so that wouldn't be too bad either. In the first knockout round, down to Group E, Bayern will finish top. It's a battle between Ostende or Nice to grab second spot in that group. Again, would like to think that we can beat either of those teams at this point. In the save, down to Group F, it is Real Madrid who will qualify top. Lille and AC Milan in a battle for that second spot. Again, two teams I would like to think that we can beat. In AC Milan, we have beaten a few times over recent years. Down to Group G, Man United top, Benfica second. That is already guaranteed. Would not mind Benfica at all as a first knockout round opponent. And down to Group H, where it could be one of PSG or Arsenal, who we get the chance to play. PSG could still fall behind Arsenal there. Those two must be taking each other on the final match day. Currently PSG on 15 points, but if Arsenal did beat them, they could potentially jump above them either on goal differential or head-to-head records. That's what the groups do look like going into this final match day of the Champions League. And now we'll just dive a little bit deeper into Group A, because on the final match day, we travel away to take on Sevilla. They are currently 2 points above Juventus. Juventus are away at Shakhtar, a team who have not picked up a single point so far in the group stage of this year's Champions League. So you'd imagine Juventus are going to find their way up to 10 points. That means that we need to pretty much beat Sevilla here to make sure that Juventus go through alongside us. Anything apart from a win, and I think Sevilla will have the edge over Juventus on goal differential unless Juventus come out and absolutely blow Shakhtar away there in that other game in the group. But if we can beat Sevilla, that pretty much guarantees that Juventus will be going through alongside us. Anything but a win, and I think it will be us and Sevilla making our way through to the first knockout round for the Champions League. But we are about to play this game, the only game of today's episode. In terms of us, we do have an injury which we are dealing with for this game. It's not too serious, of course, because we have guaranteed ourselves top spot in the group already. But the main one down there, Kenny Boreal, is out with a virus for 2 to 3 more days. We've also got Gaetano De Prisco, who is out with fractured ribs. That's not too bad because we still have Elias Anderson who can come onto the bench. But that does mean that Luis Herrera will get a start at left back in place of Kenny Boreal. And also it means that Stamatas Chatzakis makes his way onto the bench alongside Elias Anderson, as I said, for the injured Gaetano De Prisco. But apart from that, no other changes here. It should be a team at the very least can get a point away at Sevilla, but I'm hoping that we can pick up a win. Would be quite useful potentially for the coefficient table, even though we might actually prefer someone like Sevilla making their way through to the knockouts of the Champions League instead of Juventus, just because you'd imagine that Sevilla aren't quite as good as Juventus based on history in the European competitions. But that's what we look like going into this last game of the Champions League group stage, and we'll come back shortly to see if we can have any effect on who else goes through from our group as we take on Sevilla in Spain. And we go up to the 12-minute mark for our first highlight of this one. We do have a corner which we put into the mixer. Ali Ramadan gets possession back from us there. We play it forward to Lassana Doumbia. He squares that for Chaka Traore. The big question there, though, with that ball going in the back of the net, was Lassana Doumbia onside when Ramadan played that ball forward to him off the back of that initial corner? We'll have to wait and see here. And unfortunately, Lassana Doumbia was offside, so it is going to remain 0-0 here after 12 minutes, but a good start here. But as often is the case off the back of taking the corner, the player trying to retreat is still offside, albeit not by much, and it's still 0-0 after 15 minutes. And we go all the way forward now to the half-hour mark for our next highlight. We are inside the opposition half. Luis Herrera taking a free kick. He started things off solidly in place of Kenny Boreal, who is out with the flu for this last game. But we now look to play out from the back. Lassana Doumbia tries to play a ball over there for Chaka Traore, and Sevilla briefly had a chance there on the counter-attack, but we get possession back and switch that out now to the right-hand side. Levan Tam, nice ball over here for Chaka Traore. Will pick out Rakasan. Can he take a shot on? Takes his time, and now Chaka will put this in for Doumbia. Gets a header off, but it's over the bar. Probably took a little bit long there to get a shot off that time, and it's still 0-0 after 32 minutes. Now, a few minutes shy now of half-time, we do have our next highlight. Interesting to see there that Hertha Berlin are beating Chelsea in what could be quite a big game, and who does qualify from that group. But yet again, we are on the attack. Great chance here for Rakasan. Tries to chip the goalkeeper, but comes off the post. Really just needed to hit the target there. He was through on goal, and that is a big chance that goes begging. All the highlights so far in this one have been in our favour, but as things stand, Sevilla would still be going through to the knockouts of the Champions League because it is 0-0. They have the point which they need. Doesn't matter what Juventus are doing, albeit that scoreline is 2-0 in Juventus' favour. No changes as we're about to kick off the second half. And only a few minutes here into the second half, we do have a free kick. And in fact, Juventus now only go 2-0 up. So I must have just misread that before. But still, it would be Sevilla going through to the first knockout round as things do stand. But it is Sevilla here on the attack for the first time that we have seen in this game. Sandri tries to put that top right corner, just goes wide, still 0-0 after 50 minutes. And we've gone forward now to the hour mark. Just that one highlight so far here in the second half, and Juventus do now have a 3-0 lead, and also Partizan have equalised against Man City, so that could get interesting if they do pull off an upset there in terms of who finishes second in that group, but Adam Saki struggling so far. Hercules Delfino will come on for him for this last half hour. And we go forward to the 69-minute mark now. It is this time Chakachare on a 6.5 will take him off, gives Joe Nutter some game time. Still locked up here at 0-0 with 20 minutes left. And we are now inside the last 10 minutes of this game. It's been a very quiet second half. It's actually reminded me of the second leg of the tie we played against these guys in the first knockout round of the Champions League last season. But we've got a few players now on red heart. So I think the one who we are going to take off here to try and get something going late in this one and try and deny Sevilla a place in the knockouts of the Champions League is going to be Fabio Mariano. Will bring him on for Kalen Rakasan, of course, the player of the season from those end of season awards, which you did just see. Will also up the tempo and see if anything happens here inside the last 10 minutes, still locked up at 0-0. And inside injury time here in this last game of the Champions League group stage, a very, very dull second half there. You could argue that Sevilla actually had the better of that second half, but in the end we put the ball in the back of the net only once, and that was from offside, and that means that we do walk away with a 0-0 draw here in Spain, and that is enough for Sevilla to go through alongside us to the knockouts of the Champions League, despite the efforts of Juventus picking up a 3-1 win away at Shakhtar. So despite me taking the mickey out of Sevilla last week, it turns out that that golf ball all along was Juventus. That's not too surprising considering it was a white golf ball with black writing, but nonetheless we go through in top spot and Sevilla will join us. Very interesting to see. Partizan have defeated Manchester City in the last game of that group. Hopefully Man City will still be above Partizan, but I can't quite remember exactly what that group looked like. If it was Man City in a second qualifying spot, that is definitely a team we want to avoid after they defeated us in the final last season. But we'll come back shortly, check in on how HK got on in their last game of the Europa League group stage, and also have a look at how things did finish in each group before we have a look at who we are going to get drawn in the first knockout round. And we have gone forward now just prior to this draw for the first knockout round of the Champions League, which we will play the first leg of in tomorrow's episode. Pretty sure I'm not going to quite get through enough to be able to cover off both legs in tomorrow's episode, but we'll see who we do get in that first knockout round shortly. But before then, just a quick update on the Europa League. Unfortunately, as you would probably expect, HK did fall to a defeat to the team which went through the group unbeaten there in the Europa League, and that was Valencia, so they will finish bottom of their group. And then Lazio actually jumped above Montpellier off the back of a 1-0 win in that final game on that other side of the group. So Valencia and Lazio go through to the Europa League knockouts from the group which HK were in, and it is Montpellier who will make their way down to the Conference League. But HK did pick up one win, which will be quite useful in the coefficient as well as their efforts during Champions League qualifying. So a decent season from those guys, but didn't quite have the firepower to get themselves into that third spot for the Conference League knockouts. But now it's time for us to look at how the groups did finish in the Champions League. And this is what things look like. Of course, you already know what happened in Group A because that was our group. It is us and Sevilla making our way through to the first knockout round draw. But then the surprises start to happen with that win on the final match day. FK Partizan have top Group B over Manchester City. There could potentially, hopefully not, but could potentially be a rematch from last season's final in the first knockout round. We definitely do not want that. That would be a mammoth tie that early in the knockouts of the Champions League to start off 2034. Group C, this was still wide open going in to that final match day. Barcelona go through on top and Hertha Berlin in second. Don't really fear those teams that much, so I won't be too disappointed if we get someone like Hertha Berlin, who we have already beaten. The same can be said for Napoli down in Group D. They beat Real Sociedad into that second qualifying spot. Group E, it is Ostende who will make their way into the knockouts alongside Bayern. That's again a team who we should be capable of beating. And the same goes for Group F, and it will be AC Milan joining Real Madrid. We have only just got past AC Milan over the past few seasons, but at least we know that is a team that we can beat. Down to Group G, we already knew about this one. Benfica in second spot behind Manchester United. And Group H, Arsenal did pick up a win on the last match day, and that means that they have jumped above PSG into that top qualifying spot. That's probably the other team we don't want in this first knockout round, PSG, but the definite one that we want to avoid, the team who beat us in the final last season, somehow got beaten into top spot in their group by FK Partizan, and that is Manchester City. Albeit if they're losing to FK Partizan, maybe we have a chance to exact some revenge on those guys if we do get drawn against them. But it is time for us now to get stuck into this draw for the first knockout round. First out of the hat is one of the teams we do want to avoid. That is PSG. They will get Real Madrid. That is a massive first knockout round matchup. Hopefully, Manchester City can go next before we get them here in this draw. But next up is AC Milan, a team which we are very familiar with from the past few seasons. They will get Manchester United, another tasty matchup there. In the first knockout round, next up out of the hat is Sevilla. Of course, we can't get these guys. They get Bayern Munich because Sevilla came out of our group. Next up is Benfica. Would love Benfica with some of the teams that are left down there in that second pot, but they get drawn against FK Partizan. That's kind of a weak-looking tie, truth be told. No offense to either of those teams, but I quite happily would have played either of them there. In that first knockout round, next up is Manchester City. Please not them. That's just the one thing I want from this draw, not Manchester City. We'll click draw next team. And we get Manchester City in the first knockout round of the Champions League. It is a rematch from last season's final. That is brutal. That is a huge tie, much like PSG and Real Madrid there in the first knockout round. Those are two ties which would arguably be strong enough to be semi-finals. But if we can get past Man City, I give us a really good chance potentially of lifting the Champions League this season. But that is brutal. Next out of the hat, Ostende. They get Liverpool. What I would give to switch with Liverpool right now. Next up is Napoli. They get drawn against Barcelona. And last out, Hertha Berlin. They take on Arsenal. If only we just fell one more spot down there, I'd be a very happy man. But unfortunately, we're going to be playing Manchester City over the next few episodes in the first knockout round. That could be a brutal drop down for one of these two teams after making the final of the Champions League last season. But as I said, hopefully we can get a little bit of revenge on those guys after they did defeat us last season and send them bundling out early. And as I said, if we can do that, that gives us a massive confidence boost for the rest of the finals of this season's Champions League. But that will do it for today's episode. A draw away at Sevilla in the last game of the group stages, and then we get drawn against Manchester City, a rematch of last season's final in the first knockout round. If you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. As I said, tomorrow we'll come back, play the first leg of that tie, which is at the Etihad. That means that the all-important second leg is going to be back at the Laugardalsvöllur. Hopefully we can take something respectable back to Iceland for that second leg. And also, if we do any transfer business, which will open up around about the time of that first knockout round, we'll bring that to you guys as well. We do have around about £28 million to spend in the transfer window when it does open, as I said, in and around when that first leg of that first knockout round tie is going to be played. But until tomorrow, where we take on Manchester City in the first leg of the first knockout round of the Champions League in 2034. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.